Hi, Chris. Hi, Daily. Okay, good. So I suggest we start, all right? So I'm going to do a short introduction about this presentation, and so people can join us a bit later, right? So 1 hour to understand French wine and know what to drink. That's the challenging objective today, right? So today, this masterclass is, again, 1 hour together. So including your questions and answers. I'm going to try to respond to all the questions that you might have. So you have a chat on the right. So use it for your questions. If I don't answer all the questions during this 1 hour, I'm going to come back on them just at the end. So sorry in advance if I'm not answering all the questions, but I'm going to try to do my best. All right. So use the chat on the right. So make yourself comfortable. Don't hesitate to interrupt again. Try to stay tuned until the end. Last thing I want to say, if there is some technical issues, sometimes it happens. I'm going to stay here. I'm going to stay on the room. So just use the same URL. Or refresh your browser and it's going to work again. So I'm going to stay here. Sometimes it can happen on your side or on my side. So don't hesitate to refresh your browser. And let's say every 15, 20 minutes, I'm going to do a very quick check to make sure everything works fine. Right? Jean, bonjour. How are you? Welcome. Jean or Jean. I don't know how you pronounce it. All right, so short presentation about myself, very quick. I'm Alexis Caro, that's my full name. You can follow me on Instagram. You have my Instagram account, Alexis Caro, very easy. So I'm posting lots of content about French wine, so don't hesitate to follow me on Instagram. So I'm working in the wine industry since 2011. First, I've been creating some wine tasting classes in Paris for visitors coming from all over the world to teach French wine. I've been training some restaurants. I've been traveling quite a lot and giving also wine lectures in different countries. For 3 years, I've been also in charge of a Loire Valley wine appellation in the Loire. And also today I'm doing some marketing for wineries, but I'm also doing some teaching online, and I have a French wine expert program that I'm going to introduce this quickly at the end, right? So I'm very quick on this because we have a lot to cover today. So if you have any questions about me, you can ask at the end. That's not the most important part. So welcome, guys. Welcome for those of you who just joined this 1 hour webinar. So let me present you today the content, the objectives. So I have divided this presentation into 4 parts, right? The first part will be an introduction about French wine, the big picture. I'm going to give you 3 keys you really need to understand, to keep in mind. They will help you a lot to understand French wine. On the second part, which is the biggest part, I'm going to talk about, we're going to dive into the major wine regions in France, okay? And see the iconic wines, see the grape varieties, see the styles of the wine. So this is going to be the biggest part. On part number 3, I'm going to give you some essential keywords, vocabulary, for you to help you to identify the best values. And on the last part, 10 minutes, at the end, I'm going to introduce also a method I have developed to help you go further into French wine and become a French wine expert. Okay? So this is the presentation, the contents for today. Thing I want to say also, you're going to have the replay. So after the presentation, you will have access to the replay. And also, I can send you also the contents of this presentation. That's totally okay. So don't hesitate to ask me this. All right. So hello guys. Hello those who just joined. I hope you can hear me well. The sound is okay. So last thing I wanted to say. This presentation for 1 hour. This is for. So who is this class for? Wine beginners. if you have zero knowledge, that's totally okay. Sometimes I have some WSET students. So WSET is a wine diploma. Sometimes I have lots of wine lovers who just want to increase and go further and develop their wine background. And also sometimes some of you guys are also wine and food professionals, and that's fine. You're going to learn a lot today, okay? So just before starting the first part and this introduction, let me just know in the chat if everything is okay, if you see the presentation, if you can hear me, if the sound is okay. Just let me know. Quick word in the chat. I just want to make sure that we can start with good technical presentation. Okay, so just let me know. It takes a few seconds between the time you write down and I receive your comments, but I just want to make sure everything is fine. So, hello from Tegu, Hendra, Christian, sounds fine. Okay, that's perfect. So let's dive into the first part. So first, let me show you the map of France. I don't know if you guys have been to France already. So this is France. You can imagine Spain in the south, UK in the north, Germany on the east. Here on this map, you can see Paris. You have the Paris on the north part of France. Well, on this part, you have different colors. All those colors, they correspond to the major wine regions in France, okay? That's really important. Each color corresponds to a major. So we're going to dive into all of them. Green color, that's the Loire Valley. You can see Champagne in the north, close to Paris. Alsace, really close to Germany on the east. You have the Burgundy, the Beaujolais region. If you go south, you have the Rhone Valley, the Provence, the Languedoc, this orange color. And so we're going to dive into all of those different regions, right? And I'm going to refer to this map a lot during this presentation. So now, the first key I want you to understand about French wine, very simple. If you draw a virtual line, if you cut France in two parts, okay? Let's say that in the north part of France, you're going to find a majority of white wines. In the south, you're going to find a majority of red wines. So if you are more like a white wine drinker, maybe look at all the different wine regions in the north of France, the Loire Valley, the north of Burgundy, Champagne, of course, the Alsace. And if you prefer reds, full-bodied reds, go in the south. You're going to find more reds. The thing is, in France, the more you go south, the more heat you get. The temperatures are much warmer. And let's say that it's much easier to grow black varieties for making red wines in the south at the end with more sun, and the grapes, they get a better ripeness. That's for the south of France. And in the north part, you want to keep some fresh acidity when you make a white, and especially a dry white. That's also the reason why you have more whites in the north, okay? Of course, also, you're going to find some reds in the north, and you're going to find a bit of white in the south. But that's not the majority, okay? So that's the first thing about French wine. More whites in the north, more reds in the south. Second thing now, if you still refer to this virtual line, okay, in the north part of France, you're going to find a majority of what we call varietal wines. So what's a varietal wine? That's a wine which is made of just one grape variety, one single grape. For instance, 100% Chardonnay, 100% Sauvignon Blanc, 100% Chenin Blanc, 100% Riesling, 100% Pinot Noir, just one grape. Now, if you go to the south, you're going to find at Bordeaux, in the Rhone, in the Languedoc, a majority of blends. So what is a blend? A blend is a mix of different grapes, okay? So you mix different grapes. So let me give you an example. At Bordeaux, the iconic Bordeaux wine, that's a blend of the Merlot grape and the Cabernet Sauvignon. So they blend varieties in the south. So why do they do blends in the south and not in the north? The main reason is that in the south of France, when you get this warmer climate, sometimes just one grape will be a bit unbalanced. Too much alcohol, too much tannins, and the wineries, the winemakers, they like to rebalance the grapes, the dominant grapes, by some others to bring a bit of freshness in the wines, to bring a bit of acidity, a bit of fruity flavors. So that's why most of the wines produced in the south of France, both reds and wines, they are a blend of different grapes. Okay, so I'm not entering into too many details. We're gonna dive into all those different wine regions, right? But I'm giving you a big picture. So the north part of France, one single grape, that's the majority. In the south, they blend varieties, right? So that was the key number 2. And the third now, which is maybe the most important to remember on this introduction, it's all those wine region, okay? The thing is, in France, if you look at the label, if you're a bit lost seeing all those information, especially in French, the thing is, if you know the region where your wine comes from, so again, if you know the region where your wine comes from, then you can really have a good idea about the grapes, about the style of the wines, what's behind the label. So region is really key to understand the wines, okay? Let me take 2 examples right here. You take a bottle of a white wine, okay? You have no idea what's inside, but you see at least that, okay, it's coming from a village from Burgundy. Okay, that's a white from Burgundy. Oh yes, that's a dry Chardonnay, right? Another example, you pick a bottle of red wine and you see that it's coming from Bordeaux. Okay, it must be something like a blend of Merlot and Cabernet Sauvignon with higher tannin, very dry. So, that's the thing to remember today in this total presentation, and that's why we're going to dive into all those different wine regions just in the next part. If you know the region where your wine comes from, you can really guess what's behind the label, the styles, the grapes, and etc. Region is key. If you the best examples, if you go to a restaurant and you look at the list of wines, the wine list, you're going to see that for French wines, in most cases, the wines that are organized by regions. And that's the same if you enter a wine shop. For France, French wines, everything will be organized by region. Okay? So that's something very that you should always keep in mind. Okay? So these are the 3 keys I wanted to give you as an introduction. Remember, white wines, that's more in the north of France, red in the south. Second, 100% of just one grape in the north, blends in the south. And region, which is key to understand what you have in your bottle of wine. Okay? So now let's dive into the major wine regions in France. So basically, I have identified 6 of them, the major regions, okay? Champagne, of course, the Loire Valley, Burgundy, the Bordeaux region, the Rhône, the Languedoc, and then we're going to see very quickly the others, okay? So let's dive into all of those different regions. Let's start with Champagne. So Champagne, this is a nice picture I took in beginning of September during the harvest. So Champagne, and that's a really huge vineyard. And you can see here people doing the harvest by hand. So that's the rule. A Champagne must always be harvested by hand. That's the rule in Champagne. So there was nice weather this day. That was nice. So Champagne. So look at the map. Champagne, that's in the north part of France. That's really in the north, as you can see on the map. So today it's very protected, regulated. So in the past, a Champagne, that could be any sparkling wines produced anywhere in the world. Today, to be called Champagne, the grapes must come from Champagne, the winemaking must be done in Champagne, and it must also follow some strict specification, okay? So in France, we have other sparkling wines, but to be called Champagne, it must come from this region on the northeast of France. So Champagne, that's probably the most famous sparkling wine, most famous sparkling wines in the world. In Champagne, they grow basically 3 grape varieties. They grow 3 grapes that, we are in the north part of France. The conditions, the climate, it's a bit much cooler. So those 3 grapes, they like cool conditions. These are the Pinot Noir. So Pinot Noir, that's a variety that doesn't like big heat. So Pinot Noir really loves cool climate. So Pinot Noir, that's a black variety. They grow the Pinot Meunier, which is very similar to the Pinot Noir, and they grow the Chardonnay. So typical Champagne will be a blend of those varieties, but can be also just a 100% Chardonnay or 100% Pinot, okay? So that's the first thing. Champagne, they use those varieties. That makes a big difference between the first big difference between Champagne and the other regions. Then secondly, they have a process to follow to make Champagne. So very quickly, first, they do a first still wine, okay? No sparkling, no bubbles. And then they will bottle this still wine. And inside the bottles, they will do a second fermentation. So they're gonna add a bit of yeast and sugar, and to make a second fermentation inside the bottle. That's the what we call the traditional method. So I'm not entering in too many details because I would spend half an hour to explain the process. But basically, Champagne method, traditional method, 2 fermentations. And the last one is inside the bottles. And that's during this second fermentation that they create all the sparkling and the bubbles inside the bottle. Okay? So after doing this second, this bottling and this second fermentation, the bottles, they are aged for a few months. Minimum is 15 months in the caves in Champagne. And the famous wineries, usually they even let the wines age much longer. And last thing to know about Champagne is that Champagne, if you come across a bottle, if you look at the label, you will see that most of them on the labels, they don't show any vintages. So the vintage, that's the year of the harvest. But most Champagne, they don't do this because a typical Champagne will be a blend of different years. So why doing blending different years? Because the wineries in Champagne, the houses, the brands, they really want to remain consistent every year. So they have to work and to rebuild the same wine profile every year, right? But sometimes you can come across a vintage Champagne, which is usually the best champagnes produced within a winery, which is produced only the best years. So that's not every year. So usually if someone offers you a bottle of vintage Champagne, you're gonna expect something complex, more body and stronger flavors, and that's a great Champagne. Okay, so these are the best. I'm sure you know maybe the brand of Dom Pérignon. Dom Pérignon, for instance, they produce only vintage Champagne. Okay, so this is Champagne. Very quickly, this is a typical label of Champagne from. I'm sure you know the winery. This is a famous one, the Veuve Clicquot. You see, there is no vintage on the label. It says Champagne at the top. That's a brut, B-R-U-T. Brut means dry. But I'm going to come back on these notations on the next part. But that's the most common Champagne. And this one is a blend of different grapes, the Pinot Noir, the Chardonnay, and Pinot Meunier. Okay? Any questions about Champagne? Okay, let's continue. Now, the second region I wanted to cover, that's the Loire Valley. The Loire Valley, I love this region. That's where I'm living today. You have a beautiful vineyard just along the river. All along, that's a very long, wide region. Lots of castles, lots of history in the Loire. So that's really a region, if you want to spend some time in France, I really recommend you because you can ride along the river, test some wines, and visiting some monuments. That's a lovely region. So I'm giving you a few pictures right here. So on the map, that's all this green color. And you can see it starts really almost close to the Rhone, to the Beaujolais, in the center of France. It goes a bit north, and then it goes west, down to the Atlantic Ocean. So you see it's very wide. So the first word that qualifies the best the Loire Valley vineyard is diversity. So it's very long, so there is a diversity of climates, diversity of terroir, soils, diversity of landscapes. And so at the end, there is a diversity of grape varieties. And last word, a diversity of wine styles. So they produce all different wine styles in the Loire. Red wines, rosé, dry white, sweet white, sparkling, all different styles are produced because that's a really wide region, very diverse, okay? Here, I just wanted to cover the 4 major grape varieties, okay? So we have a question in the chat by Jean. Is Veuve Clicquot champagne? So Veuve Clicquot is a champagne, but Vervec, I don't know this word. Okay, so let me come back to this a bit later. Let's keep on the Loire. So I wanted to cover the 4 major grapes. The first is the Sauvignon Blanc. So if you like Sauvignon Blanc grape, buy a bottle of Loire Valley wine, a Sancerre. Sancerre, that's the iconic vineyard for the Sauvignon Blanc in the Loire, maybe the best Sauvignon Blanc. Again, north part of France, so 100% Sauvignon Blanc. Then you have the Chenin Blanc, which is the second, the other white major grapes. Chenin Blanc, they produce dry, sweet, and sparkling, all different styles. Contrary to the Sauvignon Blanc, that's only dry and aromatic whites. Chenin Blanc, all different styles. A very famous Chenin Blanc from the Loire, that's Vouvray, the Vouvray vineyard. Then you have also on the west, the melon of Burgundy. That's the grape for the Muscadet vineyard. If you like Chablis style, Chablis, that's a famous wine from Burgundy. If you like Chablis style, it's really similar. The wines from the melon of Burgundy in the Muscadet. So that's very interesting to try, and that's very good value for money. And the last one, that's a red variety, that's the Cabernet Franc. So Cabernet Franc, you're going to find those wines at the Chinon or Bourgueil vineyards, for instance. That's maybe the 2 most famous. Basically, those reds made of Cabernet Franc, the style will depend a bit on the salt, of course, but they have medium tannins, medium body reds. Some can be a bit lighter and some are a bit stronger, but very interesting Cabernet Franc red in the Loire. All right, so these are the 4 major grapes. Then you can find also a bit of Gamay, Pinot Noir, and other local varieties. But if you can remember those 4, that's going to be good, okay? And again, those grapes, 100%. You remember, we are in the north part of the France, varietal wines. Here's an example of a Vouvray. Vouvray, that's a white made of Chenin Blanc. Remember, Chenin Blanc. And I wanted to show you some additional notations on the labels. You might see these moelleux notations. So just a few indications for you. Moelleux means sweet. So you're gonna have something sweet. If you want something dry, you're gonna look for instead of moelleux, that's gonna be sec. Okay. And if you come across a demi-sec, means that it has a bit of sweetness, but mid-sweet. Let's say not so sweet. So demi-sec, I love those Chenin Blanc for pairing with like Asian foods, for instance, that Thai food, that's delicious. The small sugar will balance very well the spicy flavors of some dishes. All right. You can take notes of all this presentation, but I'm gonna send you're gonna have the replay, and I can send you the presentation at the end if you want. That's okay, right? Now let's move and continue to Burgundy, one of the most famous places also in the world for the wines. Burgundy, very small region. You see on the map, we are in the east of France. Burgundy is this pink color. That's Burgundy. That's the home of world-class Chardonnay and Pinot Noir. So if you like Chardonnay, if you like Pinot Noir, that's the place to go. Burgundy, very small. Basically, if you dive into this small region of Burgundy, you're gonna come across 5 sub-regions. The first is Chablis. So the Chablis, that's only white, dry, mineral, buttery whites, quite fresh and with some fresh acidity, so very well balanced and refreshing whites. Then if you continue, you're gonna come and you're gonna arrive to 2 very famous places, the Côte de Nuit and the Côte de Beaune. Côte de Nuit is maybe one of the best places on earth for the Pinot Noir, great Pinot Noirs, and Côte de Beaune for the Chardonnay. The problem with those 2, Côte de Nuit and Côte de Beaune, that's the prices of the wine, because there is a small production, very high quality, and huge global demand from all over the world. So the wines, the prices are completely crazy. And unfortunately for us, now you can find in these Côte de Nuit and Côte de Beaune the most expensive wines in the world. So that's a bit an issue. But if you are a bit on a budget, if you can't afford 3-4 figures bottle, I can really understand this. You can go south and go to the Côte Chalonnaise and to the Mâconnais. Those 2, Côte Chalonnaise and Mâconnais, you can really find good value for money, Pinot Noir and Chardonnay. All right. Then last thing I wanted to mention about Burgundy, the best usually they are labeled as Premier Cru and Grand Cru. You're going to find those notations on the label. So I'm going to come back on those 2 notations just on the next part of this presentation. But well, if someone gives you a Premier Cru or a Grand Cru, you're going to expect something good, okay, of high quality. And of course, the prices will be a bit more expensive as well. So typical label from Burgundy, quite traditional with a coat of arms. You see, it's a Puligny Montrachet Premier Cru. So I was mentioning this Premier Cru. It's the first cru, and this is the notation. So you have a lot of info, the name of the winemakers. Les Pucelles, that's the name of the plot of vines. Burgundy style, Burgundy, they like to write down the name of the plot of vines where the wines come from. So that's a typical label of Burgundy. Now, Bordeaux. So this is a nice picture of Saint-Émilion, the village of Saint-Émilion in the Bordeaux region. Beautiful, beautiful vineyard. So Bordeaux, that's on the southwest of France, as you can see on the map. Very famous wine regions. That's not the first region in terms of wine production. That's number 2 in France. Bordeaux is famous for the red wines, mostly reds at Bordeaux, but Cabernet Sauvignon and the Merlot, that's the 2 major grapes. But then you can find also a bit of Cabernet Franc, Petit Verdot, it's Malbec, some other varieties like this. But if you really have to remember 2 varieties for Bordeaux, remember this Merlot and Cabernet Sauvignon, okay? If you dive into Bordeaux, you're going to see that you have a river, actually 2 rivers crossing the Bordeaux. And on one part, you have what we call the left bank of the river. That's the west part of Bordeaux. And on the west part, on the left bank, you're going to find a majority of Cabernet Sauvignon. So that's the dominant grape. Famous vineyards and places, Pauillac, Saint-Estèphe, Saint-Julien, Margaux. On the other bank, the right bank, you're going to find more Merlot. Merlot is dominant at Saint-Émilion or Pomerol, for instance. So those 2 grapes are a bit different, but they grow well in the same condition. Merlot will bring some alcohol, some fruity flavors, some nice texture, and the Cabernet Sauvignon will bring some structure, the tannins. So people like to blend them together. But on the west part of Bordeaux, you're going to find more Cabernet Sauvignon, so wines that can age a bit more because of this majority of Cabernet Sauvignon, and on the right bank, on the east, the wines, they get more Merlot, so you can drink them a bit younger, right? The best wines in Bordeaux, usually you're going to see on the labels these notations, Grand Cru Classé. So again, I'm going to come back on this Grand Cru just in a minute. And they produce also a bit of white wines at Bordeaux, both dry and sweet. And for this, they use the Sauvignon Blanc, they use the Semillon. There's another one, also the Muscadel, so local varieties, but blends, lots of almost blends at Bordeaux, okay? Bordeaux, last thing, you're going to find the typical Bordeaux-shaped bottles, and Bordeaux wines that are always bottled in such a shape. That's the first thing. And on the right, you have a label, the Chateau concept. Most wines in Bordeaux, they are labeled, they are named as Chateau something. So Chateau in French, that means castle. So people, when they buy a bottle of Bordeaux, they expect to buy Chateau, a castle of something. The thing is, Bordeaux, they have more than 8,000 wineries, and all those wineries, they don't all have a castle. So it's a lot of marketing. That's a lot of marketing. That's why I'm talking about this chateau concept. In Bordeaux, you buy a chateau, you buy a castle, when you buy a bottle of wine, but actually there are no so many castles like this, okay? So this is Bordeaux. They have this prestigious premium image of chateau and castles, right? Okay, so just before going to the Rhone, to the next, let's do just a very quick technical check. I just want to make sure things are working fine on your side. Just let me know in the chat if you still follow, if you can hear me, if the sound is okay, if you can see the slides. Just say, write down, okay, and that's going to be, I'm going to continue, okay? So we are approximately at the half of the presentation, so I just want to make sure everything works fine, and I'm going to continue, okay? So I can have a 10-second break and drink a bit of water. Sound is good. Okay, good. Très bon. Okay, good. Good for you. Okay, let's continue. Now I'm bringing you to the Rhone, Valley. I'm going to show you on the map the Rhone. You have two pictures on the Rhone. So on the left, you have a picture of the northern Rhone, the north part, with a landscape with steep slopes. And in the second picture at the bottom, that's the Jean is drinking wine. Yeah, I'm going to drink wine at the end of the presentation, but just not right now. So Southern Rhone, the picture at the bottom, which is more, the valley is more open, different landscape, beautiful landscape as well, but very different. The Rhone, that's in the south of France. That's this yellow color, as you can see on the map. They produce mostly red wines, and here that's really the kingdom of the Syrah and Grenache. So if you love the Syrah, or sometimes in like Australia you call it Shiraz, that's the place to go. Okay, that's the Rhone Valley. Christian, you have a question. Is it common to blend the Sauvignon Blanc with the Semillon front? Yes, of course. At Bordeaux, they do this at Bordeaux for the whites. Most whites at Bordeaux, dry and sweet, they use the Sauvignon Blanc and the Semillon. And for the dry, they use usually more Sauvignon Blanc in the blend, and for the white, for the sweet, they're gonna use a bit more Semillon. Yeah. So coming back to the Rhone. So Rhone, again, I was saying Syrah and Grenache, the two major grapes. On the northern Rhone, north part of the Rhone, you're going to find more Syrah. And the more you go south in the Rhone, you're going to find more Grenache, okay? Famous vineyards in the north, that's the Côte-Rôtie, Hermitage, Saint-Joseph, small vineyard. And the majority of the production, that's more in the south. A famous vineyard of very high quality, that's the Châteauneuf-du-Pape. Try a Châteauneuf-du-Pape, very spicy, full-bodied, very opulent, rich. And you're going to see that the majority of the wines in the Rhone Valley, they are produced within the regional appellation Côte du Rhône. So the majority of the wines are labeled just as Côte du Rhône, meaning that the grapes, they can come from all over the region, okay? And just a quick word about the whites, because they produce also a bit of white wines. They use the Viognier, very aromatic, and the local Marsanne and Roussanne, okay? So here you have a typical label of Northern Rhone Syrah Hermitage. So if you love Syrah Hermitage, that's really a beautiful wine, quite rare and quite expensive as well. Okay, last big region I wanted to cover, that's the Languedoc, okay? The Languedoc-Roussillon, so here you can see the picture of the middle-aged city of Carcassonne. Lovely place to visit. In the distance, you can see the mountains, the Pyrenean mountains, and surrounding the village, you have vines all around. They have a beautiful climate, so that's a lovely place as well. So Languedoc-Roussillon, really in the south, just on the border, on the side of the Mediterranean Sea. Okay, I'm always a bit jealous about the guys working there, because they have such beautiful landscape and the view on the Mediterranean Sea. That's beautiful. That's the first region in terms of wine production in France, and that's the region number one, the Languedoc. You're going to find a majority of red wines. They grow the Syrah, again, like the Rhône, the Grenache. They grow the Mourvèdre, they grow the Carignan. And I think that the most beautiful wine for the reds, you're going to find them a bit on the altitude, on small mountains, where the vineyards, they can get a bit of cooler climate during the night, a bit of freshness, because that's really a region with warm climate with lots of sun. So the styles of the wine, full-bodied, spicy, and they have these typical olives and Mediterranean aromas. So famous spot for the reds at the Corbière, that's the Minervois, or the Coteaux du Languedoc. Most of those wines, they are blends of all the different grapes. And I wanted to mention also an interesting production of dessert wine, sweet wine. They are called the vin doux naturel. They're produced a bit like port. So if you like port, you should have a look at those wines. And they're produced white, but also red. So a bit more sweet, but interesting wines as well. Okay. Hendra, can Pinot Meunier be vinified alone or by itself? So your question, if I understand the question, Hendra, you asked the question if you can find just 100% Pinot Meunier. If that's your question, yes, you can find 100% Pinot Meunier. You're gonna find this in Champagne, and you're gonna find this also on a very small vineyard in the Loire Valley. So maybe I can give you the name later on at the end. So two examples of wines produced in the Languedoc. On the left, you have this Coteaux du Languedoc. Okay, that's a red wine. And an example of Vin doux naturel from Rivesaltes. This is this dessert wine, delicious with, I love this wine with chocolate, coffee, caramel desserts. That's delicious. So we have been covering those 6 major regions. Just want to say a few words about the remaining regions. First, Alsace, really on the east of France. If you like Riesling, both dry and sweet Rieslings, that's really the place to go. Riesling, that's Alsace wines. If you like rosé, you should have a look at the wines at Provence. Provence, really in the south of France. The Beaujolais also, if you want to have if you like light, fruity red wines, easy drinking red wines to be enjoyed young. They produce delicious red wine with the Gamay grape at the Beaujolais, in the Beaujolais region. Another place that's for me is an amazing place of really fast growing notoriety. That's the Corsica. Corsica, that's an island between Italy and France, and they produce amazing red wines, very aromatic, and made by some local varieties. So I really love Corsica wines. If you go to the southwest, so I mean just outside Bordeaux, there are lots of vineyards just close to Bordeaux. They produce different styles of wines, but really they are really influenced by the Bordeaux production. All those vineyards, they grow a lot of Merlot, Malbec, and also they produce some local sweet wines in the southwest of France. And last region, which is very small, it's not even mentioned on the map. That's the Jura. So the Jura, that's on the east of Burgundy. So you start from Burgundy, you go east, you arrive at the Jura, and there they produce some very interesting white wines, some a bit of oxidated. They have this tradition of producing oxidated wines, both dry and sweet. So very interesting for doing some wine and food pairings. Okay. Last part, I'm going to give you a few words of vocabulary and keywords, okay? I want to, now that you know a bit what to find in which region, I want you to feel more comfortable with the French wording and vocabulary. So the first word that you're going to find a lot if you take a bottle of French wine, that's this word of appellation. So what is an appellation? You will see this a lot looking at the French labels. So appellation, that's a location. That's a geographical location. So it gives you the place where the wine is produced, where the grapes come from. That's the first thing. Okay. Second thing, the appellation, that's not just only a location, that's also a set of rules that will define the conditions of production. Okay. So for instance, the allowed grape varieties and some viticulture practices. All right. So appellation, remember this, it gives you the location of production plus as a set of rules. An appellation that can be, it can have different sides. It can be the whole region. Think about Côte du Rhône appellation, so Rhône Valley wines, Burgundy appellation, Bordeaux appellation. So the grapes, they can come from all over the region. Or that can be just a village. That can be a district, several villages, or that can be just a small plot of vines. So we find this a lot, especially in Burgundy. Okay. Christian, how they do this oxidated wine in jar? Christian, let me answer the question at the end. Okay, that's a bit technical, so I'm gonna come back on the question about oxidated wine at the end. Grand Cru. I was mentioning those Premier Cru and Grand Cru just before. First, you need to know that cru, C-R-U, this word, a cru is a vineyard producing wine of a recognized quality. That's the first thing, okay? Grand means premium, okay? So it could be translated by a premium vineyard. You need to know that this is a regulated notation, Grand Cru. It corresponds to a vineyard producing wines with the highest level of quality. So to make it simple, that's the best of the region, of the place. This Grand Cru is always associated to an appellation. So you're going to find appellation, blah, 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 Grand Cru. For instance, appellation Saint-Émilion, village in Bordeaux, Grand Cru, contrôlé, okay? Or you have an example also here on the label on the left, Claude Vougeot, Grand Cru. Okay, so think about this, premium wines, the best wine. And usually one of the main reasons why a vineyard is ranked, has this Grand Cru notation, it's because of its landscape. It has a perfect exposure. The vineyard is located on a slope. So on the slope, the water is drained away. On the slope, the grapes, they get a better exposure. So there are a few reasons about the landscape, mainly, okay? Then you have the Premier Cru. So this is very similar to the Grand Cru. In Burgundy, this level will be just a bit lower than Grand Cru. Okay, Grand Cru, that's the best, and then you get the Premier Cru. Again, regulated, associated with an appellation. You find a lot this Premier Cru in Burgundy, Champagne as well, producing wine with a high level of quality. And there's always a reference to a village. So it will be appellation, village, plus Premier Cru. Okay? So you have some examples just right here. 2 different labels. Right? So think about those Grand Cru, Premier Cru notation that gives you an information about very high quality vineyard. You're going to find a lot of côte rôtie, côte du Rhône. So côte means a vineyard located on a hillside, on a slope. So it's often associated with an appellation like côte rôtie or côte du Rhône. But you find those a lot when you have a river and you have some vineyards just on one or both sides of the river. You have a wine which is labeled as côte of something. Okay? Vieille vigne, you're going to find vieille vigne also a lot. Vieille vigne means, if you translate in French, it means old vines. So old vines, this is not regulated, but usually when you have this old vine on the label, means that the vines, they are over 40 years old, okay? Over 40 years old. The thing is, with old vine, you get a smaller production, but of better quality. The grapes, they have more concentrations. And also because the roots of the vines, they go deeper into the soil. So they bring up some minerals and complexity to the grapes. The vieille vigne, old vines, usually they are often the best wines within the winery offer. Okay, so usually a winery, a domain, an estate will have different wines, and the vieille vigne will be the best. Okay. Champagne notation. So remember, Champagne. I mentioned this label on the middle, on the Veuve Clicquot de Brut. So Brut means dry, but that's not the driest. You can find extra Brut, which is even drier. So I think that there's an increasing fashion in France for those extra Brut, Champagne and sparkling. Sparkling with less sugar, very dry. I love this, especially for aperitif. Very refreshing, very fresh. You might find, but that's very rare now to find a demi-sec. That's the label on the right. Demi-sec means there is still a bit of sugar, some residual sugar, some a bit sweet, but it's very rare now because people, they don't want to drink sweet champagne anymore. So a few wineries, they still produce this, but that's very difficult to find. Now, be careful. Be careful of a few things. First, you're going to see a lot of labels showing Grand Vin. Grand Vin, for instance, here you have an example, Grand Vin Bordeaux. So Grand Vin, if you translate, it means premium wine. But this is not regulated. So this is pure marketing. So for instance, if you go to a supermarket, you see bottles of wine quite cheap, but it says Grand Vin. It's just some marketing, okay, to give this image of premium, amazing wines. But as this is not regulated in France, anybody can just put Grand Vin on the labels, okay? So be careful with Grand Vin. Jean, do you mean that distilled for 40 years, the previous blends? Maybe your question, Jean, is about these old vines. So, yeah, marketing strategy for this. Let me just come back on the vieille vigne. No, it just when you say when it says vieille vigne on the label, it means just that the vines, they are old, okay, and they are more than 40 years old. That just it, and then they make a wine with the vines like they do with other vines. It's just the edge of the vine. That's it. Yeah, I hope I answered your question, Jean. Be careful also with some rewards that you can see on bottles. Sometimes you can come across bottles showing some medals or rewards like golden medal, silver medals. Be careful with this because there are lots of different competitions to give medals to the wineries. But keep in mind that the best wineries in France, the best wineries will never show medals, right? So the notoriety of a winery, of a domain, is much more important. Okay? So be careful with all those medals. Of course, in supermarkets, it helps a lot for selling, but again, the best wineries, they never show those medals. Hendra, is Malbec produced in Bordeaux? Yes, it is. Yes, it's produced in Bordeaux. That's a minor grapes. It's not the majority, of course. But yes, sometimes, especially on the right bank, where they grow the Merlot, they can put on the blends a bit of Malbec. It gives some structure. Yeah. If you like Malbec, there is a place in France that's 100% Malbec wines. I'm going to write it down in the chat. That's the Cahors appellation. Cahors appellations, France, wine made of Malbec. You get the name. Cahors appellation, French Malbec. Yeah. Cahors, exactly. Okay, so we still have, let's say, 10 minutes. I'm gonna cover the last part, which is quite quick, and then I can come back on a few questions. Okay. So the last part, I wanted to show you a method if you want to go dive further into French wine and to become what I'm calling a French wine expert. But if you want to go further, to build yourself a strong wine background with French wine, I'm going to introduce a method that I have developed. So first, just let me be clear about when I'm saying wine expert. I'm just saying that I'm talking about being able to read and understand any French wine label. I mean, if you pick a bottle of wine, you read the label, you can get the origin, the grapes, the styles, and you know what to expect. That's the first thing. Second thing, that's for me, having a background to help you be able to do some nice wine and food pairings. If you do at the restaurants, you know, you can pair the French wine according to what you eat. That's what I wanted to mention for this. And then that's also for me, saying wine expert. If you enter a wine shop, you have a solid background, so you can really identify very quickly the best values of the, let's say, the wine shop offer. Okay, and you know also the good vintages, the wine maybe to avoid. So you have this background saying, okay, this is a good value wine. And then when I'm talking about a wine expert, that's someone for me who likes to share his knowledge, sharing the knowledge with your friends, surprise your guests, surprise your friends with new discoveries. And I'm saying also impress also your wine snob friends with some new discoveries. Okay. So I have developed a method that's I call the French Wine Expert Program, and this will teach you everything about French wine. So my method, this is a 5-step process, and that's a 5-step program. That's online courses, online classes available online on a private platform, combined with also live classes with me, a bit like what we do today, okay? And that's optional, but you can also apply for get a certificate at the end of this French Wine Expert Program. So let me enter into this program very quickly. So that's a 5-step program. On the first step, you're going to learn to read and to understand the French label. So the concepts of terroir, the French appellations and the quality system, the pieces of information on every labels, of course, the vocabulary, and also the additional notations depending on the region. That's the first step, okay? Then after doing this first step, you enter the second step. Then on the second step, you're going to dive into the different wine regions in France. So you're going to learn the different geography, terroir. You're going to learn the grape varieties. I mean, a bit what we did today on part number 2, but more intense. And you're going to learn the wine styles, the region specificities, and also the iconic wines. So that's step number 2, okay? After step number 2, you're able to read a label, you know the regions. Then you will learn how to pair wine and food. It's more practical, this step. So you're going to learn the basic principles of wine and food pairings. And then you will be able to explore a wine list, a wine menu, and find the best pairings option, okay? Also, I'm teaching on this part how to do some off the beaten path wine and food pairings to surprise a bit your guest or your friend. So that's step number 3. On step number 4, that's the you're gonna strengthen your background. Okay, so you learn. You're gonna go deeper into the good vintages and the vintages to avoid. You will learn the iconic wines and wineries. You will learn also the legendary French wines to have this background, and you will learn how and where to find best value wine. Okay, that's step number 4. Step number 5, that's optional. You can apply and get a certificate. So there is you can first train yourself, and then you can pass the test during a live session. I'm doing a few live sessions per month. And if you have more than 35 good answers, you get your certificate at the end. Okay, but that's optional. If you want to, you can apply for this or not. So you have also some live events with me on this program twice a month. So most of them, they are dedicated to a French wine region, but sometimes I'm doing also classes that are dedicated to wine and food pairings. Okay, and you can ask all the questions during the live events. And the replays are also available, of course, if you can't attend the live events, right? To make a summary, so this French Wine Expert program, that's a progressive learning into those 5 steps. You have more than online 30 training videos organized on different modules. You have access to the contents 24/7, of course, and you have those live classes with me. You're going to find also some extra contents about wine on the platform. And I would say that usually my students, they spend approximately 3-4 months on the program to learn everything, okay? And of course, you have this option to pass the test at the end. This is how it looks like when you log into the platform. So these are the online courses for this French Wine Expert program. So you can see the modules on the left and the different contents on each modules. The modules also, they are unlocked one after the others because I really want you to follow the process. But as soon as a module is unlocked, you can, of course, come back on it as many times as you want. So I'm talking about this because I'm doing a special offer about this French Wine Expert program just for the next days. And especially you can try it for free. So if you want to dive further into French wine, I really recommend you to have a look because you can just try it and see if it works for you or not, and you don't take any risk. And in addition, I'm doing a special price offer for this training program. So try it for free if you are interested to dive deeper into French wine. How much is it? It's you have 2 options. You can just do a full payment, and that's it, of 127 euro right now. Or you can also subscribe during 3 months. So you have 3 times 49 euro. That's another option. So you just choose one of them, okay? But again, try it. You can try it for free for 2 weeks and see if it works for you or not. You are not charged. You just try it, okay? And in addition, for this days, I'm giving you some additional bonuses. I'm giving you some a special video contents that you will find on the platform, how to build yourself a wine cellar with some advice, video contents. You're going to have also a book that I've written about my recommended French wineries. And also, if you want to make a wine cellar, if you want to buy wines for kind of an investment, you're going to find also a book showing you the wines that you should buy for this. Okay? So this is also included in this current offer. So I think this is a really opportunity for you to, if you want to dive further and add this skill to your personal toolbox. If you want to understand French wine, just try it for free and see if it works for you or not, right? So this is a special offer I'm doing just in a few days. So I'm going to send you the link to the page. So here you have a summary about everything, all the package. You have all the contents, the platform, the live classes, and the different bonuses. I'm giving you the link on the chat, so you can just click and have a look. But anyway, I'm going to send you an email with the link, okay? So let me send you this on the chat. So you have a link. If you click on this link, you will come to a page where I'm detailing and explaining all the contents, what you'll find in the program. So I just did to you just right now a very quick and short summary, but you can find more information clicking the link. Okay. So it's 10 a.m. for me, just 1 hour. So hopefully I managed to follow my 1 hour. Now I'm here to answer some questions that I have not been answering during this presentation. So don't hesitate, ask me any questions about what I covered today with you. If you have also questions about this training program that I just mentioned, go ahead, that's the moment. I remember there was a question about oxidated wine. Let me come back on this. Oh, Christian, you were asking how they do this oxidated wine in the Jura. Well, basically, it's quite simple. They age those wines in barrels, oak barrels. So they will fill the barrels with the wines for aging. And during the wine aging process into the barrels, there is always some alcohol that will evaporate, what we call the angel share. And usually in a winery, they will refill like a bit every day, a bit of wine in the barrels, because they don't want to. They want to avoid this contact between the oxygen and the wines. But in the Jura, they will not refill. They will not top up the barrels with some additional wines, and they will let this part of alcohol being evaporated. So there will be some oxygen entering into the barrels, and on the surface, there is a kind of veil of yeast that will create and that will protect the wines from big oxidations. And this veil of yeast will bring some oxidated flavors, nutty flavors, and lots of curry spices flavors. And they will let the wine like this for a few months. And that's how they make what I'm calling this oxidated wine. Okay? The thing, very simple, they don't just top up the barrels with some wines. That's it. That's how they make oxidated wines in the Jura. Yeah, it's like sherry. Exactly. It's like sherry. Yeah. If you know sherry process, yes, exactly. And that's the same flavors as a sherry. Yeah, exactly. All right. Let me look at the chat about the other questions. So Malbec, yeah, Cahors, Malbec, Pinot Meunier, okay. Oh, Pinot Meunier, yeah, Pinot Meunier Champagne, and you can find 100% Pinot Meunier. So is it common to blend Sauvignon Blanc and Semillon? Yeah. Okay. So guys, if you have any more questions, don't hesitate. I'm still here for a few minutes. Again, if you missed maybe the beginning of this presentation or part of it, you will have access to the replay. So you can come back on it and watch it again if you want. And when you get the replay, also don't hesitate to share this with friends around you. That's part of my job, to share French wine, because I'm such passionate guy about French wine. So I like to share this with maximum person. I can understand it's not so easy to understand a bottle of French wine. I mean, you have all those complex information. It's written in French. But I mean, if you look some method, it's not so difficult. So again, you're gonna receive a link by email to have some details about my French wine expert program. And again, try it. That's just free during 2 weeks, so you don't take any risks. All right. So if there is no more questions, I'm gonna say goodbye to you guys and see you maybe see you another day with another presentation. I'm doing tomorrow. Tomorrow I'm doing a presentation about. I'm doing a class about champagne. I'm gonna send you a link if you want to register. Let me find this to you. Doing a class on champagne tomorrow, and champagne and French sparkling wine. I'm inviting to this event for those of you who are attending the webinar. So champagne class tomorrow. So I just sent you another link, and if you want to register to the champagne class tomorrow, it's going to be in France at 2 p.m. So I guess it's going to be the night for you. But if you register, you can get the replay also. So thank you for following this presentation. Have a nice evening. Have a nice day. Have a nice evening for you guys. And see you later. Okay? And again, French Wine Expert program. I'm giving you the link again. Here we go. Yeah. Okay. Bye-bye, everyone. Have a good day. Have a good night.